Well, that is the high-stakes ceasefire talks that will get underway in Islamabad shortly. One side of the representation which is being done from the Iranian side has reached Islamabad. The other side, which is now being led by the US Vice President J.D. Vance, has just landed in Islamabad. J.D. Vance, which is now leading a delegation that includes Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, and he had expressed that there would be positive signs as the outcome would be for lasting peace in the region there. However, warnings that have also come in from the US president, which J.D. Vance seems to be now representing, as far as his opinion is concerned, that if Iran does not agree to the terms and conditions set by the United States of America, well, the strikes will continue and it will intensify on Iran. However, this is a very fragile 14-day ceasefire. Almost 10 days that are now left. Will there be permanent and lasting peace remains to be seen, because Iran too has not been budging from its position. Because it has now been saying that there are certain preconditions for agreeing to come on the talking table. There are 10-point proposal that Iran seems to be ready with its proposal on what are their terms and conditions that it wants to set for agreeing to having these talks with the United States of America. However, the grandstanding on part of Pakistan, because that seems to be the desperate position that it finds itself in, or rather is seeking for, is to play the host, play the role of a peacemaker is concerned. Now, both sides already there present in Islamabad. This is being called as the Islamabad Peace Talks at the Jinnah Convention Center. The pictures that also came in from inside, as there you can see the roads that are now leading up to the Jinnah Convention Center seems to be the place where these talks are expected to happen. But there are other venues that are also being decided with a 2-day holiday that has now been announced by Pakistan. Let's get connected with Irfan now. He's joining us from Islamabad. Times Now is the only channel that is getting you these live updates from Islamabad. Irfan, confirmation coming in that J.D. Vance has landed. Any confirmation from what happens here on, where he will be going to? Will he come directly to the Jinnah Convention Center?
J.D. Vance and his team just landed 15 minutes before at Noor Khan Air Base, and they'll be coming whether to Selina Hotel or an office or somewhere else. It is not confirmed yet, but one thing is confirmed for sure, that talks will not be held in Jinnah Convention Center. This place is just meant for the journalists who have traveled from across the world, and those who are supposed to cover these historic events. I mean, everything has been arranged there for them. So talks will not be held at Jinnah Convention Center. It is just a place for the journalists, and it's a media facility. So the US delegation just landed, and they were supposed to have talks at 10:30, but they landed.
So where will the talks then happen? And who has actually also received the Vice President of America? Is that also clear? Has Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif himself received the US delegation?
It is not cleared yet. The government of Pakistan has not issued any footage or any information yet. The last delegation was received by Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, along with Field Marshal Asim Munir. So I believe that similar dignitaries would receive the US delegation, but Shehbaz Sharif, he would be receiving them at the venue, I believe so. But it is not confirmed, because government of Pakistan has kept everything quite private and personal, and they have not.
No, is it because of security issues? Yet. I mean, why is Pakistani government not giving out the details of who exactly is also part of the US delegation? Is there clarity on that front? We know at least of 3 names. That is J.D. Vance and Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. However, still not clear how many people are included in this US delegation. Let's focus on another breaking update that is now coming in from the Iranian side. Will talks actually take off or crash? Because, however, will there be any direct US-Iran negotiations, or will Pakistan play the role of a mediator here and separate talks will be held? What has now been said that the delegations are expected to hold separate meetings, and these meetings are likely to be led by the Pakistani Prime Minister himself, which is Shehbaz Sharif. So once those initial diplomatic courtesies conclude, the main round of indirect negotiations will commence, and that is according to the Iranian media that seems to be giving out these reports. So is there a sense that Abbas Araghchi would be facing J.D. Vance? It is still not clear. Are there going to be separate round of indirect negotiations that would be taking place? Srinjoy, does that often happen when the two warring sides are brought to the same table? There is a negotiator sitting in the middle there, and it seems that the talks or the negotiations will be directed via the mediator.
Ideally, they should be sitting facing each other. The third party, may be there, but ideally, the best way to talk is to have both sides facing each other and explaining their problems to each other and sorting out the problems. Now, then what that helps is the fact that there is no miscommunication. For instance, the understanding of what is said by both sides have to be absolutely accurate. And in a situation where there is so much nuance, it is possibly better when both sides meet face to face and say what they have to each other. Now, that is the ideal situation. This, of course, is not an ideal situation. So the fact that they are in the same city at the same time seems to be this great feat. Now, let's see how Iran plays this. Let's see how America plays this. Already, Israel is out of this. And that's very significant, too.
Well, because Israel is not part of this delegation that is now being led, but however, both sides are now in Islamabad. But will the talks actually happen, when it comes to face-to-face or directly, that remains to be seen. But there are also, as far as images that are now concerned, of course, we haven't seen that exact image of J.D. Vance coming out of the place or deboarding, but this seems to be not even clear. As our Pakistani reporter too, Srinjoy has been saying that the government has been keeping a lot of this information with them. It's private, so not much is also being shared. Could it be because of security reasons or some other reasons there? It is not exactly sharing. How big is the US delegation also that has just landed in Islamabad?
Well, if nothing else, there is no harm in showing Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and, of course, J.D. Vance getting out of a plane. There can't be a security problem of taking 3 photographs or 1 video clip. And
I think that video clip that we've just put on air shows, them leaving. I mean, it is still not clear. We can't make out J.D. Vance or anyone in those cars, but that seems to be at a significant distance where this video seems to have been recorded of this convoy. So now what is being said that the US delegation is leaving the airport. Again, there is nothing to actually confirm when it comes to the presence of J.D. Vance because we have not seen him departing or deboarding the plane. That hasn't happened yet, but this seems to be the visuals that are now coming in of the convoy that is now leaving the airport. And this is at a significant distance. So that means the amount of security that seems to have been deployed, that even reporters are not being allowed there close to the airport to record the pictures, and nothing is also being released on part of the Pakistani government as well. Mayank is also with us right now. Mayank, this seems to be a little contrary on part of Pakistan itself because it wants to project itself as a role of a peacemaker, and all of this grandstanding that is now being done by Pakistan. We're not looking at any pictures, Srinjoy, that has now come in of J.D. Vance till now.
What can you say? But yes, we would know if J.D. Vance has said that he will be coming, then yes, he is in Pakistan, is what you would imagine, with Witkoff, with Kushner, and hopefully, very, very hopefully, they will arrive at some kind of solution. Temporary, permanent, we don't know.
The big breaking news coming in, reports telling us as to what is likely to happen next. US-Iran talks. What we know is that both delegations are present in Pakistan. Details really, but we are going to give you as to what is going to happen next when it comes to Islamabad. Iran team is going to meet the Pak Army Chief. In fact, Iran delegation has already been engaging with the Pak Army Chief. Iranian team met Asim Munir last night. That is the big news coming in. So what is going to happen? Will the peace talks take off? Will they crash? What is going to happen? Both delegations obviously present in Pakistan. Details obviously emerging as to what is likely to happen next. Again, as we were telling you, this is what the world had been waiting for. We have the details when it comes to these two delegations. Very, very significant updates which are coming in at this point of time when it comes to this particular delegation. The talks are also happening, back channel talks also happening. What can we expect next? Lieutenant General KJ Singh with us live on the broadcast. We also have Dr. Wael Awad, as we were telling you earlier, Middle East expert. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Lieutenant General Singh, if I could come to you, what are your expectations from the talks lined up today? The world's eye is obviously glued to what's happening there in Pakistan, but there is a backdrop, a lot of doubt, a lot of cloud over the ceasefire itself. How do you see the talks going forward, considering you have an intermediary and very unlikely chance of a very direct conversation between the two sides, sir?
Jai Hind, thank you for having me on your show. And it's a very topical and important issue. We can only hazard some guesses. But first thing first, these talks have come after a round of suspension of operations. You know, a peace talk is preceded by a ceasefire and suspension of operations. Now, both sides agreed to suspension of operations. There were relative calm, I wouldn't say absolute cessation of hostilities for good about 2 to 3 weeks. It went on in two spurts, it happened like that. So there is a fatigue which is set in. On both sides, they realize that. They also know that escalation can be very dangerous beyond this. The domestic compulsions on all sides also push this process forward. The fact that Vice President of USA, J.D. Vance, we have no way to confirm it, but he is known to have opposed this intervention. He is one of the people in the hierarchy who took a stand that this is not going to get you the results that you want. He is heading this delegation. So to that extent, America is signaling a clear intent to de-escalate the entire thing, go into some kind of off-ramp.
Right.
And there'll be, all issues will not get resolved in this round.
All issues are not going to get resolved, but what happens next? Will we see, a cessation as far as hostilities are concerned or not? All of that, obviously, we'll have to wait and watch, viewers. Obviously, both the delegations are present in Islamabad. It is the delegation, when we speak of Iran, which has already met the Pak Army Chief, and that meeting has happened. They've met Asim Munir last night itself. That was obviously the big breaking news coming in. This is something which is being reported in the Iranian media. My colleague Mayank also continues to be live with us. Mayank, if I could just come to you, take us through, what's happening on the ground, both sides, as we were telling our viewers earlier as well, present there. What can we expect in the course of next hour or so? Because earlier also we had broken this piece of information that the talks, far as these talks are concerned, they could be slightly delayed.
Yes, I mean, delay, as it is said that the flight of J.D. Vance got delayed actually. Now, before going to ground, let us understand how the things were pitched in, because negotiations started much before the negotiations were actually started on ground. I mean to say that the stances were made from every side. Iran had its stances talking about its completely clarifying that they won't have any concessions giving as far as operations on Lebanon is concerned. US had said that there would be no concessions as far as Strait of Hormuz is concerned and nuclear material is concerned. So you see, every side has already pitched it in such a way, and they have made a posture to eke out the maximum out of the talks. And now once the talks start, then will come the actual nuts and bolts will be discussed on ground with the 10 points from one side and from 15 points from the other side.
Yeah, because both sides obviously are digging in their heels, and both sides obviously have... You're right, Mayank. Both sides have dug in their heels and both sides obviously are not ready to budge. We have another big breaking news coming in. Obviously, viewers, we are bringing you the fastest updates as far as the breakings are concerned. So when we speak of the Iranian delegation, what happens next? They are going to meet Shehbaz Sharif. That's going to happen at 1:30. Iranian delegation is going to call on Shehbaz Sharif, we have the Iran's negotiating team which met with the Pakistani army chief last night, something we told you earlier, according obviously to what you have the media, international media, which is reporting, and a meeting between Iranian delegation and also the Prime Minister, that is of Pakistan, is scheduled for 1 p.m. today. What is going to happen in the meeting? What can we expect from the same? All of that very, very significant. Dr. Veil Awad, how do you view, sir, the latest developments happening? What do you see happening next? Because on one hand, you have the Iranian delegation, which is already met Asim Munir. Next is going to be this meeting with the Pakistan Prime Minister. End of the day, Pakistan can try to play a truce maker, but we know the type of mess it has already created. Israel is neither on board nor included in these talks, nor does it see Pakistan as a neutral mediator. We've seen such a, unfriendly war of words between Pakistan and obviously the topmost faces of Israel. How do you see, sir, these talks, so-called talks going forward, considering that someone so known, credible like Pakistan is involved?
Well, you don't need Israel to be on the table because it is the elephant in the room is already does exist, and the United States is carrying whatever the Israelis wanted to talk about it. In fact, when they have the president of the United States agreed with the Pakistani and the Iranian that this all cessation of activity should be stopped on Lebanon and in Iran, the American president accepted. And then he received a telephone call from Netanyahu who told him Lebanon is aside. So Lebanon was excluded from this deal, but the Iranian got frustrated along with the Pakistanis. And therefore, that is why the Iranians have insisted on this talk to be frank, that they wanted the vice president of the United States to be on the table. Firstly, because they did not trust Kushner and Witkoff, because last time when they had the Geneva talk, they immediately broke that talk and they went to the United States president, deceived him and told him that this is a preemptive attack by Iran, and that's why he went for an all-out war with the Israelis. Now, with vice president on the table, the Iranian delegation have the full independence to decide whether to go for a deal or whether to pull out of the deal. I think that is what also another indication. That's why we are discussing here a two-track. One track is that they are going to agree on the framework of the discussion, what will be on the table to be discussed. And the second, there will be a direct talk between the two delegations. And I think then we may feel there could be some sort of a breakthrough because there is a very keenness on the Iranian side and in the American side to find a way out that, and this is the only game where both wanted to be exit as a winner. So let's wait and see. The mediator, Pakistan, we may not like its rule, but I believe Pakistan have emerged as the mediator right now. They have been playing the role, not merely by giving letters to each side. It's a time to sit down across the table. It is together to reach a sort of a deal, and that gives you, there is a changes in the perspective of the regional power imbalance, where many power in the room should be there, like Turkey, like Egypt, like Saudi Arabia, like also the Iranian and the United States. That will give you an indication that none of these countries wanted this war to continue. And this is having said that, I would say also this has gone beyond the regional, wide frames. It's going to be a global war. And if the United States continue building the arms in the Red Sea, in the Mediterranean, in the Strait of Hormuz, and while talking at the same time, now, so that gives you an indication that Iran is loading its gun while talking, and the United States continue with the cowboy policy of putting the gun on the table.
But what is going to happen when both sides also dig in their heels? Is the US going to cede completely to Iran's terms? There are 10 conditions which Iran has put up. We have obviously another breaking news coming in. This is obviously, as we were telling you viewers, a fast-paced developments which are happening. US-Iran talks basically looks like delayed a little bit. Negotiations are going to happen, but they are expected a little later in the afternoon. As we just told you, Vance and team have just landed a few minutes ago. The talks are going to happen in Islamabad. They are likely delayed. The talks are delayed. They are slightly delayed. They are not derailed. That is the information which is coming in. Who's giving this information? It is Iranian media saying the Iran-US talks are going to happen in Islamabad, but they are likely a little delayed. The negotiations are going to happen, but they are expected to begin this afternoon in a short while from now on. Srinjoy and Mayank continue to be live with us. Mayank, apologies, I had to interrupt you earlier because we obviously had a big breaking news coming in. Take us through, what we can expect next as the day progresses, because these all crucial talks, obviously, talks which the world is, waiting for, they are going to happen in a short while from now on, delayed but not derailed.
So every side is going to put forward their conditions. And then one by one, there will be discussions that had been, that's the normal process which is followed in any kind of such kind of a high stake talks. But then since stakes are high, they might begin with the most important aspect first, or maybe the least important aspects first, which is doable immediately. And that's why you see such a high profile, as Dr. Awad had already said, such a high profile delegation means that there are lots of things are at stake and people are ready to decide. Because immediately, and when you see Iran side also, it's a delegation of 70 people. And the person who decides on the monetary policy, also the person who is on foreign affairs aspects, speaker of the house there in Iran. So what you see is actually that. So one by one, the conditions will be put forward. But what we need to again highlight is that, in a way, the stances have been made much before the talk started. And stances bring out three important issues, which is like Strait of Hormuz, which is Hezbollah, Lebanon in this case, nuclear material. And fourth, which is very important and needs to be discussed, is sanctions. If sanctions get lifted, around $120 billion are at stake for Iran, actually. So that is also one of the high stake things which can be put forward as part of the condition. And then there will be nitty-gritties which will be also further discussed. It is a massive delegation, significant delegation, sensitive and one of the most important for the decade or maybe for so many years in the recent past. It is such an important talk which we are right now talking about.
Well, absolutely, and very, very significant developments which we are tracking at this point of time. Talks happening literally on a knife's edge. What's going to happen next? The world is glued. Srinjoy, just taking this thought forward, both sides have their position very, very clear. One side says Iran has to abandon the nuclear program. There's going to be a zero uranium enrichment, something which, Iran is not agreeing to. Okay, Srinjoy, I believe, is not with us. We have our guest with us. If I could go to you, Mr. Awad, and you could, take that thought forward, something you were also mentioning earlier, both sides digging in the heels. US saying Iran needs to abandon the nuclear program, zero uranium enrichment. When it comes to Iran, they say we have the control of Hormuz, even going on to tease a new upcoming Hormuz 2.0. How do you see that sort of thin balance happening between the two sides?
Well, I believe they went back into square one where the United States wanted to discuss all issues or none. And the fact the matter that Iran have agreed on the enrichment of uranium to be only limited to some of the development of the nuclear nanos of treatment of cancer and also for power generation. And they wanted to downgrade the enriched uranium already exists with them. And the Americans have accepted. And even the National Security Advisor of the UK government, who was present in Geneva discussion, he was surprised that could be a breakthrough. The United States pulled out and they deceived the Iranian and they have attacked them. So therefore, now the Iranian, maybe they can change their position, but they will be a better position to bargain with the United States. They are ready to end their nuclear program, at least to the minimum enrichment program, if that's the American left of the sanction on the Iranian and end totally no more war. They have to give an undertaking with a guarantee from global powers that America and Israel will not go again and attack Iran at least for the next 50 years. So if these are the conditions that they can be implemented, and the United States understand the implication of the multipolar world is emerging out of these discussions right now, especially after the war in Gaza and the war in Iran, it gives you a clear indication that the global community is not happy with the United States unilaterally and exceptionally attacking country one after the others, and like a regime change by force, where the President Trump, he promoted himself as a man of peace. Then we saw what he did in Venezuela, where he hijacked the president and his wife, and he took the oil. Now he wanted to catch the Iranian oil and saying Strait of Hormuz could be a good bargain chips for him to make lots of money for the American. I think these are the issues, the whole world now understanding that the United States is no more able to sell its stories of the war going on in the region. And I believe most of the country in the region also thinking twice about the presence of the American troops in this region. So the whole talks is currently right now going to be focused on the future reshaping of the West Asia.
Absolutely, and also viewers, as we have obviously the visuals which we are showing you, both sides have reached on ground, Iranian side, the American side as well. The talks are on a knife's edge. Let's take a look at what the sticking points are. The US position, what are they saying, and what is the Iranian position? And then obviously we will pivot back to the shot. Let's talk about the conditions which have been put by both sides. US, how they're positioning themselves, and what is Iran saying. So US positioning itself. US basically saying that when it comes to Iran, they must abandon the nuclear program, and that is something which is very significant. The zero uranium enrichment, very, very interesting, which is what US is emphasizing on. Mayank is live with us. Mayank, why don't you take us through what are the conditions which the Iranians have put up and what next?
So in terms of uranium, they are saying it should be capped. It should be stopped. I mean, America has put up a stance. And let us remind everyone that when the day war started, apart from first thing, which was regime change, nuclear, the sides wanted to blunt the capacity of Iran to an extent that they are not able to reach, become nuclear capable in terms of weaponry. Also, they wanted to blunt or destroy the capability to produce missiles which could fly up to Diego Garcia. In one stance, they had tried that also. So these were the beginning with which the things had started. And now it remains the sore point even now. But NPT, let me bring out NPT 1968 when it started. Nuclear uranium enrichment for peaceful purposes is part of the NPT. But non-proliferation is also an important part of the treaty, and which was put up in 1968 and then implemented in 1970. Having said that, it remains a sore area, apart from the two other things, which are like Hezbollah, operations on Lebanon, and Strait of Hormuz. These are the three important aspects which hang in fire, and they are going to actually decide the direction of the things. But as the delegation size shows, it shows hope. Let me define it in that way. It shows hope that people are ready to not only decide, but it has a lesser gap between the decision makers and the implementers altogether there.
You are right.
Let us see it as a hopeful situation.
What next? Will it actually lead to a ceasefire, cessation of hostilities? Will we see, conflict again? And we will be obviously opening it up for a discussion. We have obviously Lieutenant General KJ Singh, retired, who continues to be with us. And I'll come to you, sir. But first, let's take our viewers as to what the sticking points are. What is it? Something which my colleague Mayank was also highlighting. What is the US position? US position very clear. Iran needs to abandon all the nuclear programs. That's what the US says. Iran basically says ceasefire must include Lebanon. This is what both sides have had to say. What else is US saying? Zero uranium enrichment. There's going to be no backing down. Iran says we have a right to enrich our uranium like any other country would for our energy needs. US position, curb ballistic missile program. Iran says release Iran's blocked assets. That is both sides obviously digging in the heels. US position, end the support to proxies obviously at Hezbollah. When it comes to Iran's conditions, sanctions must be lifted. Even criticizing all the action obviously which Israel is indulging in against Hezbollah. US position, Strait of Hormuz must reopen. We already know what is Iran saying. Iran is saying Hormuz control is non-negotiable. We are not going to agree to it when it comes to Iran. That Iran says is a non-negotiable, with both sides digging in their heels, with both sides refusing to budge. What happens next, as you have obviously the all crucial dialogue which is lined up next? Viewers, diplomacy is clouded by doubt. What happens next? Times Now is going to bring you each and every update. Stay tuned. On the other side of the break, we will continue with the non-stop and rolling coverage of the talks which are happening in Pakistan as we speak.